This episode is brought to you by Atlas VPN. More about that at the first break. First episode of Interrogator. We are going to be doing a new format because I did get a nasty gram letter from Games Workshop requesting that I beef up the transformative elements of my reactions and breakdowns. But we're going to do it. That way we can stay on everybody's good side. I, of course, am a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd. And as with all good Games Workshop products, let's get right into the violence.
Living means learning to do what's necessary.
Awesome. Yes! So, I was, before we get into it, let's go ahead and talk about our sponsor and how they can help you out. So, this video is brought to you by Atlas VPN, and I do get questions in the comments, or I do get questions in the comments section saying, hey Connor, I can't watch this. I'm in Iran, I'm in Finland, I'm in Paraguay or Uruguay. Where do I see this? Well, the good news is Atlas VPN can help you out. Basically what they are is a VPN service, meaning that you can change your geolocation by signing up with them, and it's super simple. All you have to do is pick a new country, and then your country will, the IP address will shift to that host nation, and as a result, you can gain access to Warhammer TV. So you can pay them a little subscription service, pay Warhammer TV a little bit subscription service, and you're in business and you don't have to watch my breakdowns. Not only that, but you can also protect against doxing. If you're a streamer or a YouTuber like me, sometimes you can go do debates and you don't want people to have your personal information. So if you use a VPN like Atlas VPN, then you can hide your IP address. That way when you're logging into services like StreamYard or Discord, people don't have access to that information, and as a result, it's more difficult to dox you. Also, this will make it impossible for corporations or governments to stalk you because they are not capable of getting your residential address. It makes them more difficult to track your information, and as a result, you're more secure. You don't have to worry about anybody gaining access to that personal information. Additionally, if you want to research historical events, let's say that you're in a country that doesn't want you to know the history of the world from other people's perspectives, you can use the VPN in order to cloud your geolocation and your service and basically research those things to your heart's abandon. Finally, you can fight price discrimination, meaning that you can use this service, Atlas VPN. You can use that service in order to recoup your losses by shopping subscription services, by shopping airline miles, by shopping other products, because companies will use your zip code in order to determine their prices for online shopping. So use this service in order to recoup your investment. I went ahead and did the 3-year service for $70, which breaks out to about $3 a month. It's super cheap, but they do have a monthly subscription service available if that meets your budget and your current needs. And they also have an annual service as well if that meets your budget and your current needs. So go ahead and check out our sponsor, but let's go ahead and get into the breakdown. So the quote from the Adeptus Astronomica is, only in your deepest self is the truth of what you can be, and without a doubt that truth is terrible to bear. So the Astronomica, you're like, Connor, I'm brand new to the 40K universe. What does this even mean? What this is the service, the Adeptus, that are responsible for the maintenance of the Golden Throne on Holy Terra. The Emperor of Mankind is mortally wounded and only sustained through the Golden Throne. He was wounded in a civil war known as the Horus Heresy, but he is used as a psychic beacon and a lighthouse to guide humanity as they jump through the stars. This universe's version of hyperspace is pretty much hell, and without the psychic beacon of the Emperor of Mankind through the Astronomicon, he serves as a lighthouse to guide humanity's ships through the void. So if he was to die, or if that light was to go out, then humanity would be plunged into darkness and consumed quickly by the threats that threaten it now, like the Xenos or Chaos or anything like that. So it's important to do that. And these are psychic specialists, meaning that most people from the Adeptus Astronomica are psychics themselves, and they also deal with psychers. The Black Ships is a top secret navy that goes throughout the Imperium of Man, kidnapping and enslaving psychers, both so they can be recruited into the Imperium service, but if they're too volatile or too powerful or too weak, then they'll simply be sacrificed to the Emperor of Mankind in order to sustain him as he goes forward. So if there's anybody who knows a thing or two about the souls of humanity and the souls of human beings, it's going to be the Adeptus Astronomica. I was super worried when this series kicked off. I was very worried that the shadow fighting on the wall was going to be not an artistic choice, but a technical and artistic limitation that was going to mean that we were going to be getting a similar product to what Games Workshop has already been doing, where they're robbing us of the quality of the animation through jump cuts and through artistic choices that are very obvious in order to save money. That is not the case. The violence later on in this series proves the opposite, and I'm super happy. I was actually, during the Exodite series, I was saying I can't wait for a product from Games Workshop to feel comfortable in its own skin. This episode feels narratively powerful, and it feels comfortable in its own skin, which is awesome. But our emo protagonist says that he has to live with doing what's necessary, and he launches into a series of very emotional, dark, gratuitous, self-deprecating, self-hating tirades in which it's very clear that he's traumatized by his service. And he ends that with wondering if his hands will ever be clean. The answer is no. This is the Imperium of Man. No, you will never be clean. Everything that you're surrounded by involves the blood of the Xenos, the human beings, and Chaos forces. Even if you were an industrial worker in the 40K, the Warhammer 40,000 universe, or you were a farmer on an agricultural world, you would still be contributing to the xenocidal campaigns of the Imperium of Man. So by proxy, you're not innocent. And even if you were living a relatively innocent life, you are liable at any time to have a Xenos or a Chaos incursion come and flay you and your family. And so the concept of innocence in the Warhammer 40,000 universe is just not possible. And Interrogator Jurgen, as a servant of the Imperium of Man, should know better. So we can learn a lot from these frames. Even just watching it right now, I came across something new, so I want to mention it before I forget it because it's not in my script. If you actually look at the hooded characters in the background by the pyre of bodies, you can actually see other inquisitorial characters that come in later in the show and later, I'm assuming later in the series. But there are a lot of really cool little details here. And in order for you to understand them, I first have to describe the Inquisition. So the Inquisition is one of the highest orders in the Imperium of Man, and it's only answerable to the High Lords of Terra and the Emperor himself. They are agents combining a few letter agencies in our modern era, like the National Security Agency. The National Security Agency in the United States, at least, is responsible for investigating the communications of exterior threats. The Central Intelligence Agency is responsible for compiling information on those exterior threats and acting against them in a kind of secret service, political and diplomatic manipulative kind of way that sometimes goes kinetic, is a term that we use in these spheres. So the Federal Bureau of Investigation, being another three-letter agency, investigates and prosecutes high-level criminality and corruption, and then all of these three-letter agencies are mixed with the medieval Inquisition, meaning that the authority with which the Inquisition acts is enshrined with holy and borderline unquestionable authority because they're given the latitude to maim, torture, and kill their opponents, as well as compromised innocent people who have been exposed to these nefarious ideas and nefarious actors. And their authority is so broad that they can go as high as executing imperial planetary governors if they're found to be corrupt or acting against the interests of the Imperium. And they can even destroy whole planets if they're found to be chaotically infested. So that, just to give you an idea of the power and authority of the Inquisition that is invested in this protagonist character. So the Inquisitors, which are the highest members of this order, they employ retinues, they employ bodyguards, they employ hired guns, they employ potent psychers, and they can basically pick from the litter of Imperial forces, gangs, planetary defense forces, even going so far as to hire space marines and psychers at some points in order to assist them in their investigations and punishing of the Imperium's enemies. So those being groomed for the office of becoming an Inquisitor, they could be part of the retinue, meaning that they're just bodyguards and hired guns and they never move up the scales. But if they're actually selected, then they'll start out as acolytes, meaning that they're starting in the process, but then they can be promoted to Interrogator, which is like a inquisitorial understudy who's being groomed for the office. And oftentimes acolytes and interrogators, you gotta pick a couple of them because they're not going to survive their service, because that's how hazardous their service is. But it's clear from these frames that Interrogator Jurgen is haunted from the bloody work that he's had to do in the Inquisition's name, including massacring chaos-possessed children and burning a city, that I can't tell if the faces that are falling apart are either falling apart because of the flames or because of chaos corruption, like Nurgle, the god of corruption. Either way, it doesn't matter, because basically in his service, he's been required to slaughter chaotic, infested innocents, regardless of whether or not it's chaos or just burning pyres of cities. So one of the most traumatizing events, if we're supposed to take these flashes, is not just that he had to kill kids, not that he just had to slaughter an entire city, but also that he lost one of his partners. Whether or not Belena is the Inquisitor herself or merely a peer as an acolyte or as another interrogator doesn't really matter, and I'm sure we'll find out as this mystery unfolds. Another cool little detail is the Punisher-style skull on his sleeve, both on Belena's sleeve and on Jurgen's sleeve, where we can tell that they are the Imperium loves skulls, so that's not saying anything in and of itself, but you can tell that these are not just, they're not just diplomatic inquisitors who are trying to root out Imperial corruption. They also get their hands bloody. And another detail, as we're continuing to swing at this thing, is you do see the power armor implants in his back, meaning that he can probably be hooked into some level of power armor, and as such, he has been deemed important enough to physically enhance and is likely faster, stronger, and smarter than the average human being. So we're getting all of that in just a few frames, which is an awesome amount of detail in order to share with the viewer. So always more blood is one of the lines that's issued here as he's kind of punching and headbutting into the shower so hard that he ends up cutting himself and bleeding and smashing tiles. I would like to recommend a song to the audience. Power Doesn't Run on Nothing by the Thermals. The Thermals are a band that sing about like religion and biblical religion in particular, but they do it from borderline like a satirical, critical way, and it's punk rock, and it's really good. And Power Doesn't Run on Nothing is kind of like a historical analysis of structures, power structures within humanity, and it's an excellent song and infers something or implies something deeper about human relationships. So I do recommend that song a lot. So, I know that you can't hear it, but Jurgen goes on to wax philosophically. Most folk are lucky enough to leave the past behind them or take a bullet before it catches up to them. I've never been lucky. And then we see an homage to an English gangster film, Layer Cake, in which he crushes the pills, pushes them into a drink, and then swallows it whole and tells the ghost of his past, "I'll see you tomorrow." And I wanted to mention that ghosts can keep you company in a certain way. So as a Marine Corps veteran, as a law enforcement veteran, I'm going to go ahead and invoke some of my experience at seeing some horrific things in my own life. Those traumas can become a part of you, and I think that the human spirit can refer to them as ghosts, meaning that there are these recurring emotional and spiritual traumas that revisit you in times of quiet. And while those things can drive you crazy and eventually, cause you to do self-harm or compensate with chemicals and all that kind of stuff, one of the interesting things is you can almost view them as continued companions through life, particularly if you're dealing with more trauma and more violence. While you can resent these ghosts, they can become powerful tools and reminders of your past that can almost become honored in a way. Veterans and law enforcement officers can feel the humble responsibility of carrying these ghosts with them. And so while they're being tortured by their trauma, they can also value that torturing. So I know you can't hear it, but that's because we're trying to keep it just to the violence and the insight, so we can appeal to and appease the Games Workshop gods. But there is a reference to a shock maul that's wielded with incredible enthusiasm. A shock maul is an enforcer weapon. It's basically, think of a medieval maul, so just a club or a baseball bat with a giant, like a giant weighted tip on it. Now electrify that and hit somebody with it. It's not going to be pleasant. But there's a little bit of dark humor as Interrogator Jurgen is looking for his telephone, or looking for this universe's equivalent of a telephone, and also a little bit of dark humor as he deals with an informant who's telling him that gangsters are on the way in order to pay him a visit. So the killing of the ganger, where he gets pushed off of the ledge, is actually like a really interesting insight that tells us more about the universe, and you can even see his dead body on the lower catwalk. The question that's implied by this slaughtering is that, like, the gangers who are coming after Jurgen are powerful enough to kill this man just as a joke or on impulse. They do not fear the retribution of this gang member's gang. And on top of that, who's going to investigate this homicide? In this universe, it's so dangerous, you can be killed just as a joke, as an afterthought, as a sick, twisted impulse from another individual, behooving you to travel in pairs and to think about your safety and security, hence why this gentleman probably joined a gang in the first place. But the implication is that in this hive, his death is not going to be investigated, nor is it going to be cared about at all. The local workers, they're too busy. They're too busy fueling the industry of the Imperium of Man, so they're just going to shove his corpse down to a lower catwalk. Do you think the enforcers are going to investigate this homicide? He's a member of a gang. There's something in law enforcement called a drug deal gone right, in which gangsters kill each other, and as a result, if nobody talks to you, guess what happens with that homicide? It goes unsolved, but you have one less gangster in your city. That's called a drug deal gone right, and it's a term that I did hear while I was serving in law enforcement. So, even going into the higher levels of authority, like the Arbitas, you think they care about a ganger getting killed? The Inquisition, you think they care about a gangster getting killed? This is a world filled with billions upon billions of people. Who gives a crap? And that's kind of the implication of this darker universe, is that the dignity of humanity has been lost to the vast imperium that is always at existential threat. So again, who cares about a gangster? So smallest of chances that I lock the door. Idiot, he calls himself, as the gangsters bust through, and give him a reminder of why you should lock your door in the 40th millennium. What I like about this is it gives us a plot convenience, a contrivance, where he can secure his hab, but because he's so alcohol and drug addled, he doesn't do it. And this is a carelessness that not most humans, most humans cannot get away with in the 40th millennium. If you don't lock your door in the 40th millennium, you are liable to be broken into, robbed, and murdered, and no one will investigate or care about your homicide. And it shows us a couple of things all at the same time. One, that our interrogator friend has a death wish. Two, that he thinks that the badge of his office does carry some level of security in and of itself, where he doesn't have to care because who's going to kill him? Three, that most gangsters wouldn't kill him because of the previous power of his office. But then four, he doesn't care if the Inquisition does kill him. Of course, the Inquisition is never going to let a locked door stop them. But at the same time, locking your door might buy you a few precious seconds if you were trying to save yourself. But doesn't really matter. Sit down. That I can do. There's a little bit of humor about the hangover, and on top of that, there are hangovers where you would want to be dead. So I can kind of sympathize with our interrogator friend here. He mentions that there's additional hitters in the corridor. This is his presumption based off of what the female gangster, is telling him. And he says, to her credit, she keeps her eyes on me, and she's played before. So the reason why this is a cool call out is because they're both playing a security game. They're both playing a game of violence, and this is a game of violence that I'm familiar with. In law enforcement, there's something called a furtive gesture. The nature of threatening somebody with arrest is that they might want to hurt you or kill you. They might want to resist. They might want to flee. And so as a result, you have to be ready for people to make moves faster than you can respond to them. So in the case of dangerous people like murderers or rapists or people who might have a reason to not want to go to jail or prison, people who are schizophrenic or who have threatened violence in the past, the reason why you want to be aware of furtive gestures, basically movements like that, is if let's say there's somebody with a murder warrant or somebody who's dangerous, like, I don't know, an Imperial Interrogator, and you know that he's likely armed and you know that he doesn't want to do what you want to do, you want to watch out for those furtive gestures, those quick gestures, because that can be them going for a weapon. That can be them going for the escape. That can be them trying to run away. And as a result, you need to be able to identify and articulate those, because those will be warnings to you that either you need to make a move in order to apprehend them, or you might need to make a move in order to use deadly force. And so you need to pay attention to those kinds of things. So the other note about having hitters in the hallway is an interesting insight, because what it says is that this female gangster does know what she's doing. Not only is she coming in with a couple of guys in order to do a negotiation with what she views as a potentially dangerous man, but then having hitters in the hallway, they can watch out for ambush. That way they can't be taken from the rear. And also if things go sideways, if they need to kill this interrogator, or if they need additional people in order to restrain him or apprehend him, then they have those people to call in. So there's a noir. So there's a film detective style series that's older, early 20th century, I believe, is when it was most popular, but it's called a noir because it's a dark investigative thriller. And it typically follows a private investigator or a detective, and there's a lot of noir tropes in the series. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is the fact that they did a damsel in distress, but instead of doing a damsel in distress, meaning that, this damsel comes in with a distressing situation that she needs your assistance with, the damsel is the distress. She is the threat. She is coming with a problem, but also she's coming with the high threat of violence. So the interrogator tries to invite in the other people from the hallway. He's not really trying to be hospitable. What he's really trying to do is assess the threat. And he invites them in, or invites the female gangster to invite them in for a glass of Amasec, A-M-A-S-E-C, which is this universe's version of wine. Now, it is more like a port, meaning that it has a higher alcohol percentage, but it's supposed to taste like wine, and it's regional, meaning that each planet will grow their own version based off of the fermented grain or fermented fruit that they have from their planet. But the process is similar in that it will come out in a wine-like product that does have a higher alcoholic percentage. Now, an interesting little detail here that we're going to break down is the fact that his vision blurs when he sees her tattoos. Now, is he just hungover? Maybe. Does he have a headache from getting punched in the face? Maybe. But also, sigils and tattoos have been noted in other lore to give people headaches and blurred vision and make them sick, even if they're not psychically sensitive. So, is he hungover and he got punched in the face? Or is she a cultist? That's an interesting question. Talking a little bit of shit, do you know who I am? No, I'm are you the refuse serf? And that, basically threatens some impending violence. People have died for lesser insults. People die all the time. Maybe it'll be you, but not today. And that depends. So the interrogator is playing a mind game. He's trying to assess the level of threat that he's going up against. But if this was an assassination attempt where, basically he was just going to get bushwhacked for his previous dealing with the drug dealer, then he would already be dead. He would already be dead because they would have burst in and just killed him, either beaten him to death or shot him, rather than trying to do this negotiation where they're trying to hire him for a job. And there's a reason why he's being hired for a job. The drug dealer came to him trying to communicate the same job while also delivering his neural suppressors, his drugs that help him avoid the trauma of his previous incidents. But what ends up happening is they fight over the price, and he ends up killing this drug dealer, resulting in him being having a debt to the drug dealer, Ado. The problem with this, not the problem from Ado's perspective, the problem from the interrogator's perspective is he owes money to a gangster. Not a position that you want to be in, and he's corrupt enough that calling in the favor from the Inquisition is probably not going to work out. So the female gangster sets, you do not set the terms. What this tells me is he's out of favor with the Inquisition. He might have enough money in order to buy off the drug dealer, but what really the drug dealer wants is his services. Having an inquisitorial-tied, hired gun, known for his penchant for violence, who's good at what he does, who has a reputation, who precedes himself, is the kind of authority that can get you into most rooms in any world. So having that talent and the ability to kill, but also having the ability to use authority in order to get into important rooms would be an asset to a gangster. So let's go ahead and check out, the interrogator's response to this potential threat of violence.
And so you will do this?
No. I'll get Ado his credits, but that's it, friend.
Once again, you do not set the terms. This isn't a choice.
It would seem not. Oh, shit. Turns out I hadn't loaded it, at least not properly. I'd forgotten the mess with Mama rounds made, especially up close. I knew there were two of them. One round left and two vat heads. On balance, today could have been worse.
Let us take her, and we'll be on our way.
Sure. Come pick her up. She's getting heavy. She's dead. What do you say we avoid joining her and go our separate ways? We can wait for the universe to find some other way to kill us.
It's a safe bet that shooter of yours misfires.
Maybe. But your associates weren't so lucky. You're cool, friend.
Sure. Winding up. Seems a shame to waste the ammo if I'm not getting paid. But this isn't over.
Never is.
Ah, yes! I'm hoping this is the quality of violence that you're going for. I hope this is the quality of violence that you've been waiting for. I hope this is the narrative and insight quality that you've been waiting for, because it sure as hell is something that I've been waiting for. So let's go ahead and break down what we've just seen. It isn't a choice. Seems not. So the actual choice is do the job for the gangster, probably further indebting yourself into the underworld as a corrupt former interrogator who abuses your authority in order to do assassinations for other gangsters in order to fuel your drug habit, or kill the messengers or die trying. Those are really the two options, is shoot your way out or do the job. So our interrogator, not his sense of well-being, his death wish, and his sense of honor come into conflict, and as a result, in the honorable fashion, he drags a woman across a desk and stabs her in the throat, in her carotid with a severed glass. one of the cool things about this detail is that while I was shocked that he was able to make these moves, because realistically what you're talking about is drawing, aiming, and firing from a bodyguard perspective, is the fact that since he's physically enhanced, since he's gene enhanced, since he's mechanically enhanced, he probably is fast enough to pull this off. Not only that, these are gangsters who aren't expecting the fight because it's so logical that he would just do the job, because these are the kind of people who think that way. Why would he go up against Ado? Ado's impossible to fight. Why would you even think to do anything else? So as a result, they're slow. So the interrogator is able to maim the female gangster who's threatening his life, aim, and pull the trigger. Well, the problem, he was drunk and high, and he didn't load his pistol properly, and he only has a few rounds inside it. And then I had to turn on the captions for the maimer rounds, Maimer, maimer rounds. But what maim means to grievously injure, and they definitely do that. They take the top part of the skull off of the gangster, and as a result, basically take him out instantaneously, take out the other gangster, which is awesome. And then, like I said, action is always faster than reaction, so he's able to do this really quickly. And while he's waiting for the backup to come into the room, grabs her, holds her hostage. Let us take her and we'll be on our way, one of the vat heads says. And he says, sure, she's getting heavy. Well, he's looking for any opportunity to basically walk away without getting killed, so taking these guys out one at a time is the way to do it. So he, basically uses that in order to get an opening for the second gangster in order to approach, takes him out after he pulls a knife. He has nefarious intent. He doesn't want to go hand to hand with somebody covering him with a pistol and somebody coming at him with a knife. That's too much. He will end up splattered if he ends up, taking on that fight on an even keel. But he loses his leverage when the female gangster dies. So he is able to negotiate his way out of the final firefight. With the last one, he doesn't have ammo, but the other guy doesn't know that. And so he's able to talk his way out of it, basically, and appealing to the other gentleman's sense of self-preservation. But this isn't over. Never is. And, the emperor won't bless me twice, so he actually does secure his door. Well, that's not exactly the most self-preservation thing I've ever seen in my life, because basically instead of coming up with a game plan for how he's going to get himself out of this sticky situation, or going and finding his friends, or figuring out how to pay his drug dealer and get out of the work that he's been assigned, instead he just gets blackout drunk until his friend shows up. His friend is named Baldur, Baldur, big, tough, brutish son of a bitch, and during this conversation, actually the most interesting part of it is the difference between the interior and exterior dialogue. Because the exterior dialogue is buzz off, I don't want you, you're a pain in my rear, get away, I don't need you, this, that, the other. But the interior dialogue is, he's always been a good friend, he's always looked out for me, he's awesome, I actually deserve this gut punch and all that kind of stuff. And we close to black as, Baldur basically says, I've got a lead on Belena. I'm assuming, the other dead interrogator or dead inquisitor, which kind of set this interrogator Jurgen onto his existential spiral in the first place. So, awesome. I mean, we've been looking for this. We've been looking for death and violence and narrative and a piece that looks comfortable in its own skin. I commented on that, and in my previous Exodite breakdown, I was like, it still feels like Games Workshop is holding back. When are they going to release something that feels comfortable in its own skin? And this is it. It's comfortable in its own skin. It's powerful from an animation standpoint. It's powerful from a narrative standpoint. It's powerful from a being comfortable in its own universe standpoint. And it's got that blood and guts and that violence that we all love. So if you enjoyed this piece, if you enjoyed this breakdown, then please assist the people who assist me. If Atlas VPN can be of service to you, either on a monthly basis or an annual basis or whatever, go ahead and check out their website, and leave a comment for the comment gods, leave a like, all that kind of stuff. That way we can boost this, get it into as many eyeballs as possible, because of course, that's how I get paid, and I don't want to do this for free forever, okay? Then, so if Atlas could be of service, let them be of service to you. If Warhammer TV is of interest and you're in a country that does have that service, go ahead and sign up for them. If you're in a country that doesn't have that service, then sign up for Atlas, then sign up for Warhammer TV. If you want to support me individually because you like my breakdowns or my political debates or anything like that, go to patreon.com/counterpoints or go to counterpoints.gg. That way you can kind of check out what we're all about. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for coming along for the ride. It is sincerely appreciated. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.